For more on today's developments and their global impact, I'm joined now by Heather Conley, a former State Department official for European Affairs, who's now at the Centre for Strategic and International Studies, and by Nile Gardiner, the Director of the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom. Welcome to you both.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
So, Nile, Theresa May did say that if her Brexit deal wasn't backed tonight, then Brexit could be lost. Is Brexit drifting away?
I don't think Brexit is lost, but the reality is today was a very bad day for the Prime Minister. I think she badly misjudged the mood of her own party, and the deal that she negotiated with the European Union clearly was not a good deal. And it was viewed by a lot of Conservative MPs as a surrender to the European Union. I don't think Brexit is lost, and I would say that even if Parliament votes tomorrow against a no deal and votes in favour of an extension to Article 50 on Thursday, we're still on the trajectory towards a no-deal Brexit on March 29th. It's an immensely complex process for the EU 27 to agree to a specific exit date for the UK. Also, Parliament has to put in place new legislation which overturns the original March 29th date, sets a new date. There has to be a parliamentary debate. This all takes a lot of time. I think there's still a good chance we could see a no-deal Brexit on March 29th.
Absolutely. And to that very point, Heather, tonight Michel Barnier, who was, of course, the chief negotiator for the EU on Brexit, he tweeted that the EU has done everything it can to help get the Brexit deal over the line. Our no-deal preparations are now more important than ever. Does it seem to you as though the EU is now preparing for a no-deal?
So I think they have to prepare for every scenario, and both sides have been preparing for this exact scenario. The government will lay forward some more documents tomorrow that discuss what the no-deal scenario means. I think the European Union has done what it could do, and I think that extraordinary midnight session with Jean-Claude Juncker in Strasbourg, where the Prime Minister flew there, they've tried, but they were also very clear that that withdrawal agreement was not going to be reopened. I think there was some false hope that somehow that could happen, and I think this has been a miscalculation about the EU position for the last 2 years, and unfortunately, we're running into 17 more days of some pretty dramatic domestic miscalculations as well as miscalculations with the EU.
Niall, would you agree that maybe the Brexiteers miscalculated the position of the EU and that Brexit was always going to be much harder than it's turned out to be?
I don't think so. I think the Brexiteers are very clear that the EU was always going to be difficult to deal with. And absolutely, the EU has been extremely difficult to deal with. I think the EU has not negotiated in good faith. The problems have been compounded by the fact that we have a Prime Minister in place who has not been particularly strong-willed or powerful in her negotiations. Quite a bad combination there. But I think the Brexiteers have always viewed the EU as a very, very tough adversary. They have been a very tough adversary. These have been adversarial negotiations. The EU have not offered any concessions whatsoever. And I think the Prime Minister misjudged the EU, certainly, and I think she underestimated the gravity of hostility that exists in Brussels towards Brexit and also towards Britain as well on the part of many EU officials. So I think she did not play this game very well and got outplayed, unfortunately, by Brussels.
But meanwhile, what does this do, Heather, to Britain's standing in the world as it grapples with Brexit maybe indefinitely?
Yes, I mean, I think so much of our focus has been on this day-by-day, hour-by-hour extraordinary history that we're watching unfold. We're really not appreciating the impact that Brexit will have on the future of the European Union, which will be a less significant force, trade, economically, and a foreign security policy actor. It's already struggling mightily with its own divisions. I think we also aren't fully appreciating that the United Kingdom has been so focused on Brexit that it's difficult to reach and have a UK that's going to be a global player, that global Britain that we keep hearing about. It's understandable. Everyone's so domestically focused right now. So the United States is losing two valuable partners in their energy and their concentration on a lot of global challenges, from Venezuela to Iran to North Korea, because they're struggling on this subject.
And Niall, would you accept that Britain's focus has been diminished because of Brexit, and that could just continue if there's a second referendum or even a general election?
I think a second referendum would be a very bad idea. And it would be a slap in the face for the 17.4 million Britons who already voted to leave the EU. And I think that democratic decision has to be respected by Parliament. I would say that actually if Britain manages to get out of the EU, and I think it will do so eventually, I think Brexit Britain will be a tremendous force on the world stage, especially standing alongside the United States. And I think that the British economy is doing very well. Foreign direct investment is flowing into the UK. US FDI into Britain is up 20% in 2017. So I think the long-term outlook is very good, just provided Britain can actually get out of the EU altogether, which I think will be a very, very good thing for the UK.
Britain hasn't yet left the EU. Would you agree with that? The outlook for Britain is good?
Well, I mean, I would say economically we're seeing an incredible amount of softening because of this uncertainty. U.S. companies are making a lot of contingency plans, as are global companies. I agree with Nile on the one hand that when there is clarity and people can make decisions and the UK can start seeing opportunities rather than going through this, there's a possibility. But we are witnessing a 40-year breakup, and both sides are going to be lesser because of it. But we're going to hopefully get to the opportunity as quickly as possible.
Indeed. Heather Connolly, Nile Gardiner, thank you both so much for joining us.